Welcome back. We've got another class for you today where we're going to focus predominantly on mobility, but also some general strength, especially around the abs. We will get started with our normal setup and warm-up. So let's get our legs parallel, knees soft. Think of your pelvis like a basin of water, and we're going to tip a little bit of water out the front of our basin. We're going to come back to neutral and tuck the tailbone under as you tip water out the back of your basin. So just moving between a little bit of extension and flexion of your lower back. Your pelvic position affects your lower back alignment, which is why it is important to be able to find and maintain your neutral pelvis, and also it's important to work through your corset muscles, and we're going to do that now, lifting up through our pelvic floor muscles, the muscles that stop the stream, the muscles that stop gas. It's like a lifting and a squeezing. We're going to tighten up our belt one notch. If you've got one hand above and below your belly button, draw the hand below your belly button just gently in towards your spine. This hand shouldn't really move much at all. Lengthen through the crown of your head, and let's roll the shoulders. So those corset muscles, our pelvic floor and our transverse abdominis, they're working probably around 25 or 30% with all of our exercises today. It's not much of a contraction, it's just a little connection. Let's settle those shoulders down, get that little connection between the shoulder blades. We're going to place our hands at the base of the rib cage, whatever's really comfortable for your shoulders. And we're going to breathe into the base of the ribs and feel them expand to the side. And out. Like all of our movements, we're going to be listening to our body all through the class today. We're not going to move into discomfort or pain with any of our movements or exercises. I'm laterally flexing, so I'm just going to warm up my spine in all three planes of movement, starting with the side-to-side movement, working the frontal plane. Never forcing it, just listening to what your body is telling you. You may find you're a little stiffer going one side than the other. Let your body move. That's what it's designed to do. So after this one, I'm going to do some little standing spine twists, and I'll keep that softness at my knees, and you'll feel that rotation all through your legs, including through your feet and your ankles. Again, we don't force it. In fact, we don't force any of our movements or exercises. Always moving within your body's functional threshold for this particular moment in time. It will vary from day to day, from morning to night. Just one more as we continue warming the spine up in the rotational, the transverse plane. And we'll do the sagittal plane now. Breathing in, we'll breathe up, we'll extend backwards. And then we'll sit back, and then we'll round out through our spine as we come up to standing and get our perfect posture. Breathing in, breathing out. We'll breathe in and we'll breathe out. As usual with all of our breathing, if you get confused, just remember to keep breathing, not to hold your breath. And I'm going to stand nice and tall. Length through the crown of my head, and I'll maintain that all through the exercises I do. My spine stretch. I'm going to slowly peel my spine off an imaginary wall behind me, through the neck first, then down through the rib cage. And I can continue working through the lumbar spine. My hands could walk their way down my thighs onto my knees like they've done, or I could rest my hands there and help to support my upper body weight. I might hold it there just for an in-breath at the bottom. I might hold it there for several deep in and out breaths. But listening to your body, taking your time, trying to articulate through your entire spinal column. If you continue rolling down past the lower back until the hips start to roll, then obviously to start the movement we're going to return the hips before we return through the lumbar spine, through the thoracic, and through the neck. On the next one, we're going to come all the way down to the floor. We're going to do our roll down to push up, and I'm just going to move a little bit further across so as I can be on my mat. So I'm going to take my time. The start of the movement is exactly the same as I'm dropping my chin down towards my chest, holding onto that soft peach underneath my chin as I continue rolling down through the rib cage. Start to push my backside back a bit, and then I will bend the knees, bring them down squarely to the mat. They will touch simultaneously after, of course, my hands had already touched simultaneously, and I may do a push-up or two, just keeping that good alignment of my spine if I do so. Elbows going out at about 45 degrees. And then we're going to move into our first exercise on the mat today, which will be the leg pull supine, which I generally refer to as the Sphinx. So I'm going to move into the Sphinx now. Elbows are underneath my shoulders. So I try not to have them out too wide. I don't have them at the edge of my mat, but I sometimes do make it harder by having maybe one further away, but they're still shoulder width apart. At the moment, I'm going to keep my elbows underneath my shoulders. I'm looking between my wrists or between my palms, and I'm going to try to relax through my gluteus maximus and my hamstrings, and my feet are relaxed on the mat, and whenever I need a rest, I'll just go into my squash fold. So I am always going to listen to my body. Some days I just find this really easy, other days it's quite a challenge. So once again, I might just hold this position. And that might be all I do. To change the intensity, all I might do is hold it for a little bit longer. Of course, I need to keep my alignment, I need to keep breathing, and of course, it's not going to be uncomfortable through your lower back. So they are hopefully always going to be a given. On the days you feel like it is a bit easy, maybe just make it a bit harder. Or maybe just hold it a little bit longer. If I do one elbow further away like I just did, I will usually have a rest, and it's only when I come back up into my Sphinx position that I would do the other side, which will be working harder through one sling of obliques compared to the other. And when I finish doing that, I'm going to relax down to the floor. And we're going to do just a slightly different stretch today. We're going to do the angry cat, happy puppy stretch. Now I want you to think of what your hip bones and your ribs are doing at the front of the body. We're going to bring them initially closer to each other as we create an arch, like so. So I'm always thinking of what's happening at the front of my body when I'm doing my angry cat. And now I'm going to separate those bones I indicated and arch in the other direction as I go into the happy puppy. Once again, coming into the angry cat. So just moving between flexion of the spine and extension of the spine. And we have a nice little mobility sequence starting off with our chest release. Pick a side. I'm going to start on my right today, and I'm going to have length through my spine. I've got that natural curve in my lower back. I always like to use the back of my hand just to give that extra feedback to my brain. As to my alignment, length through my spine. Engage those corset muscles, so feel that feeling of space between the side of your waist and the mat. Try to keep your hips and your legs as still as you can. And we're going to breathe in and initially just focus on that rib cage, rotating, and the head and neck alignment. The breathing becomes a little bit more natural once you straighten the arm out. But as a rule of thumb, we breathe in as the arm comes up to vertical, breathe out as it rolls backwards, breathe in as it comes back to vertical, and breathe out as it comes back to the floor. Now people ask me, what should I be doing with my head in this position? I personally like to watch my hand as it does the movement. So I get the rotation through the neck as well as through the rib cage. But there are a couple of other options. One is you could rotate your head at exactly the same rate that you rotate your ribs, which means your nose would be staying above your sternum, your breastbone. And another one, especially good if you do have a little bit of vertigo or you just get a bit nauseous, changing body position a lot, is just to keep the eyes facing forward. That's the least comfortable of the three for me, but if you are getting a little bit nauseous from changing body position a lot, then it's the best one for you. So what's actually happening here is your rib cage is rotating one way, your neck is actually rotating the other way compared to the ribs, which is something that's a little bit unusual for the body. It doesn't normally do that. You should have hopefully remembered you could have held the end of that range, you could have been doing your circles, you could have been doing your rotations of your upper arm. You had lots of different options as you were doing your chest release. We're going to roll onto our back. We're going to do shoulder bridge rolls, which we're going to do a couple of times during today's class. So you might want to use this opportunity for the first of our shoulder bridge rolls just to focus on the smaller movement. I'm feeling like I'm pushing the feet away from me to initiate the movement, and I'm just flattening out through the lumbar spine, and then I'm going to roll back. So hopefully you remember the breathing pattern we generally use with this one is we breathe out as the body moves, and we do nothing as we breathe in. So not a big movement. If I did have the hands in the small of my lower back, I'd be rolling over my little finger all the way up towards my thumb, which is at the base of my ribs. My hands are, of course, in the way and are quite distracting, but they do give you that feeling that you are actually rolling through that lower back area. You will engage these backside muscles more as the hips start to leave the floor. But they should be the muscle that you're initiating the movement with, that initial tip of the pelvis. These muscles will also engage as well, the hamstrings. Keep your feet nice and flat. If you are peeling all the way up to your ski slope, then try to lift up one vertebra at a time through your rib cage. And you can then add your arm drops on the in-breath, and don't pop the ribs either as you take the arms overhead or as you bring the body back to the floor. So just one or two more of those. As I said, we will be coming back to this exercise, and then I'm going to get you to swap sides for your chest release. I'm just going to have a drink of water. So I'm going to hop onto my left-hand side for my chest release, and then we'll have the awesome swan dive coming up next. With this shoulder, try not to have it right up under your ear like so. I want those shoulders to pretty well be stacked as your hips are as well. So like I did on the other side, I'm going to guide the head and focus on the rib cage rotation initially before I straighten the arm out. But I've got my alignment through my spine, that length through the crown of my head. Again, I could keep the eyes forward. Or I could watch the hand. So as a rule of thumb, if you do get a little bit of nausea or a little bit of vertigo, then change from one position, for instance, face down to side on, slowly. Just do it slower and do it less often. Take your time and maybe do several exercises in a row on your side before you go face down, and again, several there before you go onto your side, and several before you then go onto your back. So minimal changing of position and a slow transition. And if you need to stop, have a breather and stop. You're listening to your body always. So just one or two more of those. You might hold the end of that range. Once again, add the rotations or just hold it there. You can, of course, do the circles as well. We're going to go face down next. It is our swan dive. So, one thing I do want you to think about is imagine there's little thumbtacks between your belly button and your pubic bone. Try to draw your tummy away from those thumbtacks, and we're going to relax the forehead into the mat. If you're wearing glasses, you should not be wearing them for the exercise. Take them off and take your time, extending through the neck, maybe sliding those fingers down towards your knees, maybe continuing on as you work through your lumbar spine, and then continue on, possibly if you want, to work through glute max and hamstrings. Relax through glute max and hamstrings first, and then relax back to the mat. Let yourself sink into the floor. So still think of drawing your belly button muscle away from the floor, even as you peel back. You might add that external rotation of your arms as well. You can hold this swan dive position as well. The arrow position is the one I'm in now. You can be in the push-up position where you'll drop those elbows as you work through your thoracic. And if you are using the hands to assist by pushing into the floor, to assist through that lumbar spine, then you may not necessarily worry about the hip extension. You may not necessarily worry about lifting the legs, engaging these muscles as much. They'll still get a little bit of a workout. One or two more, and then we're all going to come back and have a little bit of a child's pose, sitting back, stretching away from your fingertips. You get a nice stretch through your lats. There is, of course, the diagonal version of this one. So at the moment, we're sitting back directly back like this. But what I could do is also put my right hand on top of my left and then push my right hip out to the side of my right heel. And that will stretch through the right-hand side much, much more. I'd come back forward and then I would switch. Left hand on top of the right and push the left hip back to the side. Now, I only held those for a few seconds. I generally want to hold a stretch for a good 15 or 20 seconds at least. We are going to stay face down. We're going to do Superman's next. So it's a version of our prone swimming. Remember, I do want you to engage this muscle first, so you might want to practice with your glute swims first or your prone swims. Hips are going to stay still, but you'll feel the glute max engage, and then you'll stretch and lift the leg away. You relax it down, and then you engage the other one and stretch and lift the leg away. Arms are wider than your shoulders, stretching out opposite arm, opposite leg through the crown of your head, relaxing it down. Still trying to turn that glute max on before you turn your hamstring on. Your head stays in good alignment. There's not much of a lift. Your nose only comes barely off the floor. You're on the rack and you're being stretched out. You should feel that little bit taller when you leave the class today. So one or two more of those, and we're going to roll over onto our side. We're going to do our side kick for stability. Also excellent for working through some other corset muscles, your multifidus muscles of your lumbar spine. And then we'll go into our only hip exercise of today, which is our hot potatoes. So for side kick, this palm will be facing the ceiling. Legs are forward of the body, but other than that, you're pretty much in a straight line. You've brought the hips forward, the legs forward, pivoting at the hips. Hips are stacked, shoulders are stacked. You're going to lift those legs off the floor. You can do this with the other leg relaxed on the floor. This one down here is not engaged now, the adductor muscles. But for stability, you'll get a much bigger workout if you can lift both off the floor. So you're going to try to keep those hips nice and stacked, keep that good alignment of your head and neck, and breathe out as you kick that leg just maybe a little bit forward. Breathe in as it comes back. You're only looking to find that small amount of instability. Once you find it, you don't need to go any further. When I do this exercise, at least 90% of the time I do it nice and slowly. Very occasionally, I'll do it a little bit faster, but when I do it faster, I only do it after I've done a period of slow movements first. Most of these muscles, or most of these fibers we're getting into here are slow twitch. They're local muscles, they're stability muscles. So we want to work them slower. I'm going to bend the legs. I'm going to straighten out the top leg only. I'll just move up the mat a little bit more so you can see what's happening with my leg. I'm going to internally rotate both the arm and the leg, and I'm going to tap 3 times, pretty much in line with the body. Then I'm going to do a nice arc forward and do 3 taps forward of the body. And then I'm going to arc back into line with the body for another few taps, and then again forward. So I've got the leg in internal rotation the entire time until, of course, I switch. I can make this a little bit harder by having a slightly bigger arc and a slightly bigger lift, and also by doing it slightly slower. But you're still trying to stay as still as you can from hips to head. I'm going to go into external rotation now. To keep that good alignment, I won't reach the floor with my heel though, and that's fine. And if you've got anything left, maybe do one or two more. We're going to roll onto our back and we're going to do our up, up, down, downs as our next exercise. We've got a few exercises now where we're going to get in through these abdominal muscles, and that's not just the deep ones, but also the globals, being the six-pack muscle and what I refer to as the love handle muscles, the external obliques. So I'm going to spin around on my mat because I want to be on the correct side for when I do the other side, for my side kick and my hot potatoes. Let's find my neutral pelvis. Remember, you've always got the butterfly position to go back to. Corset muscles are engaged. You should be relaxed through your love handles as you float one leg up, and then you'll need to engage them. Then you can switch them off. And you engage them again, and so on. So just concentrate on that engagement of those globals as they're required, the switching off when they're not. Then check that you relax through your shoulders, your arms, your neck, your jaw. Basically using the muscles that are required when they're required and not using them if they're not. We're going to do scissors. Next, I'm just checking my notes just to make sure I don't miss any exercises, which I regularly do, as you probably know by now. So, we've got a few sets of scissors. We'll start with the basic one. Now, you always have the option. Now, if your lower back's playing up a little bit, for whatever reason, you might just stick to one leg at coffee table, but you might still want to make it a little bit harder, in which case you can have a straighter leg and just scissor away with that one leg. Further away coffee table, straighter leg, it's harder. You can do it a bit slower too. If you're feeling good, float both legs to coffee table, one at a time of course, and we'll just do one leg, then the other. So we alternate between legs. That makes it a bit easier. If I want to cheat, I can use my hands a little bit to help support the weight of that leg that's staying still. It's good to do that during the warm-up. It's also good to do that sometimes when you're quite fatigued. Once you've done that set, your little warm-up set, give yourself a little round-the-clock stretch. If you've already turned your feet to the floor, then you can continue doing the same sort of movement and in fact getting an even better stretch or a better movement through that lumbar spine especially. But the best part about the round-the-clock stretch is these muscles are fatigued, and so you give yourself a bit of a breather and these muscles get a rest before you return the feet back to the floor. We're going to do another set of scissors. I'm going to straighten out my left leg, and the scissor leg is going to be the straighter of the two legs. So obviously it's harder for three different reasons right now. One is I'm doing the same leg over and over again. I've got a straighter leg, so a bigger angle under the knee, but also I've got a further away coffee table as well. If I do it slower, it's harder again. Again, you'll have a rest, depending on how hard you worked, will depend on how long your rest is. I've swapped legs. I'm taking my heel down so it pretty much touches the floor, and that makes it harder. If I was only taking it down a little bit like that, it's still hard, it's just not as hard. Now, I wasn't going to do 3 sets of scissors. I'm so tempted to do more, but we're going to go into our shoulder bridge rolls because we're going to come back and do some more work through our abs in a minute. So shoulder bridge roll. We were doing the smaller movement before. Some of us were doing the larger movement. It's completely up to you which one you want to do right now. You're going to keep that balance between both feet, equal balance through the left foot and the right foot. all the way up and all the way down. Again, some days you'll find this is really easy and other days you just won't be able to get it. Don't beat yourself up on those days when you don't get it. We all have those days. So once again, I did want to do some more scissors, but we are going to be doing some large double arm circles with single leg extensions in a moment. So, or single leg stretch. So, and that's not really my main goal today, is to do too much strength work in any region. It's really just to mobilize. It's an all-round class. So a couple more of your shoulder bridge rolls. I'll demonstrate it one more time. But once again, I'm really taking my time as I feel like I'm pushing my heels away from my buttocks to stretch out the mat between my heel and my tailbone. And I've squished down on that sponge, that imaginary sponge under my lower back, and then I can lift up one vertebra at a time. I'm working harder through my bottom muscles right now. I'm on the top of my shoulders and there's no extra pressure through my head or my neck. And I'm then going to roll back down one vertebra at a time, as balanced as I can between left and right foot. And we're going to go into our large double arm circles. Get my drink bottle out of arm's reach. I'm going to float 1, 2 legs to the coffee table. Again, you've got the option of just one leg at coffee table. I'm going to breathe out as I straighten out. If I want to make it harder, I could do the same leg over and over again. If I want to make it a little bit easier, I can do what I'm doing right now, alternating between legs. I'm doing it relatively slowly. I'm also adding the rotation through my upper arm. And if you do that, you'll get that lovely feeling through the shoulder. Well, I'm hoping you get a lovely feeling through your shoulder. I certainly am. I've yet to change directions, and in fact I probably won't bother. I'll probably do the whole set in this direction and I'll change directions for my next set. Again, you might just hug the knees up towards your chest, have a little bit of a breather. I'm moving into spinal flexion here, which is fine because I'll find my alignment again when I return the feet to the floor. One at a time. And for my second set, I need to change directions with my arms. Feel that stretch through the heel, through the fingertips. Breathing is always in time with what the leg is doing. We're breathing out as the leg goes out. Exhale on exertion. Breathing out during the more difficult phase of the exercise. And again, a little round the clock stretch. And we're going to do our side kick on our side after we've had just a little bit of our spinal rotation. Just note if you've got any extra tightness on one side. I dare say many of you are already doing that now. You're used to listening to your bodies, which is good. So, I have done all the exercise I want to do on that side, on our back. So let's go onto our side for our side kick. Again, let's get our alignment right. Always looking for your ABCs. Alignment, breathing, and centering. And then we add the D, dynamic movement. Doesn't look particularly dynamic, it's quite slow. That's okay. Corset muscles engaged, that feeling of space between the side of your waist and the floor. Often, like right now, I'll close my eyes and do this exercise, just tuning into what I can feel. If you need to, have a little breather and then go again. But I'm going to get ready for my hot potatoes right now. I'll bend my legs. Still keeping my alignment. I'm going to straighten out the leg, internal rotation, tap, 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 and arc forward, tap, 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 and an arc back. And when I say back, it's in line with the body. I just breathe normally into the base of my rib cage whilst I'm doing the exercise. I'm not trying to time the taps or the arcs to my breathing at all. Feel free to do so if you wish. The key thing is that you're still breathing. After this one, I'm going to go into external rotation. I have no idea if I've done more on this side than the other in internal rotation, but my guesstimate would be yes, I have. Probably did one or two more. There's nothing magic about the number 3, which is the amount of taps I'm doing before I do my arc. You might just do 1 or 2. You might do half a dozen. I'm certainly feeling it through my gluteals, which is where you should be feeling it as well. And I don't even need to tell you where your gluteals are right now, because they're the ones you're about to stretch with your pretzel stretches. We're almost finished. We've only got knee drops to finish the class off today. So good work. I'm going to draw this ankle in and push this knee away. Sometimes, by the way, I'll leave this foot on the floor and still just do that push away. Just going to change the angle slightly. You'll feel it slightly differently. If you're not getting a great stretch, we'll move on to another position where you do. Listen to your body and just take in what it's telling you. And you're going to do a little comparison between this side and the other side in a moment. In fact, I might even do so right now. Might start with the foot on the floor version. Oh, that feels good. This is the side that I just did, of course, with my hot potatoes. And generally the side you've just done is the side that will feel the tightest. Just using my breathing to sink deeper into the stretch on my out breath. I'm now going to move into the deep lateral rotators by drawing that knee across the body towards the opposite shoulder, peeling the hip on the far side, in this case off the floor. Again, I might keep that foot on the floor. So getting into the back pocket muscles, the deep lateral rotator, piriformis and friends. It's a group of 6 muscles which are deep, as their name implies, in this region. And when you're finished doing that, we finish off with our hip rolls, a lovely stability exercise. We've got that plate on our tummy with the marble right above our belly button. You're going to keep one knee still as you drop the other knee out to the side on the out breath. Breathe in as it comes back in. You'll keep this knee still and drop the other knee out to the side. I'm using my hands to give extra feedback. I'm looking at the camera, and I can also get extra feedback because I can see, especially with the colours of the top, whether or not I'm rolling my hips left to right. And of course I can tune into what I can feel. Back of my pelvis and sacrum against the floor, the base of my feet against the floor. I can feel what's happening. My brain is coming up with a pretty good mental picture of what my body is doing in space. Arms at sleepwalking make it a little bit harder. And of course you know that you could add the arm drop out to the side as you do your knee drop out to the side as well. And relax. So when you finish doing that, you finish the class. Excellent work. I look forward to seeing you for our next class shortly.